Hey, I'm Adam James, and I wanted to make a quick video. I've been hacking away at my svg-clj library, and I made some cool utility functions. I just wanted to do a function showcase on those here. So let's pop right away into the scene and just get to it directly. So, okay, I've got a REPL going on over here, and I've got my SVG library right here. Now this function showcase is going to focus in on the tools namespace. I want to show off the show function here. I've got two in particular. I have def cider show and def show. Cider show is very specifically a show function for rendering SVG elements into the REPL, the cider REPL here. And I want to show that off right now actually by using cider show on this thing that I defined here, A. Ooh, well, that's an error. Let me define A for a minute with another function here. So I have this other utility called load SVG, and I have a particular SVG that I think is really cool. If I could just def things properly, we've got a massive SVG file here. Probably shouldn't have just printed it into the REPL, but here we are. Alright, so now that we've got A defined correctly, we can actually just run cider show A, and it should show in the REPL, and indeed it does. Let's resize that. It's a nice big SVG, and boom, it works right away. Before I explain what's going on, I'm also just going to run show A to show you what happens there, and that is useful if you're not in a cider environment. What it does is load up whatever you've got and show it in the in your web browser. Alright, so let's have a quick little look in here and see what's going on. So you pass into the show element something that is SVG data. So that can be something, basically anything you generate with the SVG library. So a really simple example is a circle. This hiccup style data structure counts as SVG data in this context here. And so you pass that in. I let a temporary file name here. You notice it's a PNG. I'll get to that in a moment. And then you define data here, and I just do a simple if check. If the SVG data passed in is already wrapped in an SVG container element, then you just pass the data as normal. Otherwise, you just wrap the data automatically. This is just for simplicity. If I have a fully defined SVG element with the container and everything, I can still show it. If I have partial bits that aren't wrapped yet, it's nice and quick to show it as well. The whole idea here is you want to use this while you're iterating on a graphic or something like that. You just want to see something kind of as it's being processed, and that's why it's cool to show it in the REPL. So what happens then is it runs this PNG function with the data and the file name, and then it uses Clojure Java io/file and gets the file, the PNG that was just generated. And the cool thing about this is Cider has built into it the ability to display images inline when it detects that it is some kind of graphical element. The only prerequisite you have to do here is make sure that Cider has content types enabled, and you can do that with mx cider REPL toggle content types. So activate your REPL here, mx, and I'll try to run it here, cider REPL toggle content types. So it says here content type support in REPL disabled, and so now if I were to do cider show svg/circle 20, it generates the PNG no problem, but it doesn't actually display it. So I have to toggle that back on and then run it again. So that's the only prerequisite, but it works out of the box right away. And you can see it nicely works with whatever SVG element I pass in. Make it more obvious. There you go. Let's do one more thing. I'll show off a rectangle. It's beautiful. Works really nicely, and I'm super happy with that. Now, this PNG function here, let's have a quick peek at what that is. There's two versions here. I have a shell call PNG, and what this does is it shells out and calls convert, which is part of the ImageMagick suite of tools. It's commonly installed on a lot of computers because it's a really common tool to use for all kinds of image manipulation stuff. So you might have it, and if you don't, it is quite easy to install with a package manager, and that is left up as an exercise for the viewer. But all you see here, it calls convert with background none so that SVG alpha channels are properly rendered, and it takes the file is deb standard in, and all I do here is to the shell call I pass in the converted SVG data, and then of course you save it to the file name, which will be a PNG. There's another version here, PNG, which renders much quicker, and it uses a really cool library called let's go into the depths and have a quick peek. Batik Rasterize here, and it is a wrapper over a Java library called Batik that rasterizes SVG. It is pretty awesome. It's faster than shelling out to convert, but I have both there just in case. I started with this one, and then I discovered Batik and tried this, and it worked way better, and I just didn't delete this one. It's there as an option, but this is the PNG call I use. And the reason I do this is because in the Emacs CIDR REPL, you can't, or there's no utility to view SVG directly, so I just rasterize it to PNG and use that to display. Maybe there are other tools to set that up a little bit better, but it rasterizes quickly enough and lets me display things. And so that's the CIDR show. Now the show here, once again, let me do show A. It just opens up the file in the browser here. It's basically doing the same kind of thing. It renders the SVG out to a temp file. I call it .html here because when you try to open it, if it's an SVG, it'll try to open Inkscape, which is not actually what I want. What I want is to view it in the browser nice and quick. So I just call it HTML, even though it is SVG. It'll just open in the browser nice and quickly. So once again, you have the file name, you have the data, which either is already wrapped or will wrap itself in SVG, no problem. Spit that file name, spit the HTML data to the file name. Then here, clojure.java.browse/browse URL will browse the URL. So, for example, clojure.java.browse/browse URL. If I do github.com/AdamJamesV, true, it should open up that URL. Oh, you know what? It's probably it probably needs HTTPS. Probably needs a more complete URL. There we go. It actually works. So when you pass it a file, it basically works the same way you would do something like this. If you do, if I make a file and I do open in the terminal here, open will read the file and launch whatever program is set up to open that file type. So HTML will open in your browser, and so this function here, Clojure Java browse URL, basically is the same thing. but you can see it launches pretty quickly, and if you have a browser open already, it's nice and simple. These are kind of utilities meant for viewing things while you're working. They're not necessarily meant to be used in any production setting. I just think they're really cool to have there, and I'm quite happy with how they work. In particular, I really love Cider Show. It's so cool to see. It's so cool to see graphics in the REPL like that. And rest assured, I'm going to be hacking away with these ideas to see if I can do even more visual stuff in the REPL. But that's all I've got. That's the function showcase for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, consider doing the normal YouTube stuff, like, comment, subscribe, leave some comments. I really enjoy the comments people leave on my videos. It's always enjoyable to see what people have to say. It's very encouraging to have that kind of positive interaction, and I do my best to reply in a meaningful way to comments that you leave. So if you are compelled to leave a comment, please do so. I enjoy them and I try to make the best of them. But that's all I've got today. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Well, to be more fair, you will see me via the next video. I won't be seeing you, but you get the idea. That's all.